Seeing Clara shivering made me truly panic. I'm sorry, Clara, I like you too. Clara's expression didn't clear up. Lies. I was at a loss. It's not a lie, I'm really bad at lying. Clara puffed out her cheeks. Then, I think your like and my like are totally different. I was bewildered. My name is Michael, 31 years old. I work at a small inspection company. Originally, I worked for a large company in New York, but I decided to move back to my hometown when my father was hospitalized and my mother expressed her anxiety over the phone every day. It might sound like I'm a dutiful son, but in reality, I had always wanted to go back to my hometown. Working for a big company was fulfilling, but the interpersonal relationships were complex, and it wasn't suitable for someone like me who is not good at communicating. I also disliked the hustle and bustle of the city. No matter where I went, there were always so many people, and I especially hated packed trains. Over time, my desire to return to my hometown only grew stronger. So, my father's hospitalization and my mother's anxiety were a blessing in disguise for me. Although both of my parents were against me leaving a major corporation to return to my hometown, I pretended to be a dutiful son and proudly went back. Since I had difficulties with interpersonal relationships at the large company, I decided to join a smaller company this time. This company was planning to venture into the field I had been working in, and they were looking for new staff for that purpose. After seeing my resume, President Miller hired me on the spot. During the interview, he was almost jumping with joy at my experience, and he shook my hand, saying, "I'm looking forward to working with you." With a smile on his face, Mr. Miller, in his early 50s, seemed very approachable. It felt like a homey company, and I thought I could do well here. However, I seemed to have made a blunder at the welcome party. For some reason I still don't fully understand, Mr. Miller's attitude toward me turned a bit cold the next day. While I was puzzled, a colleague gave me some advice. Apparently, as the newcomer, I was supposed to flatter Mr. Miller. But to be honest, I didn't even know much about what Mr. Miller had accomplished. I thought that respect would naturally develop as I got to know more about his achievements over time. But it seems I was too slow in doing so. In any case, it was essential to praise those above you. Being a sycophant was a necessity in this company, I was told. And that was the area I struggled with the most. Compliments that I didn't truly mean just didn't come to me. But as a working adult, I couldn't just say that. When in Rome, do as the Romans do. If that was the company culture, I had to follow it. Despite the struggle, I tried to follow my colleague's example and pay close attention to every move Mr. Miller made, trying my best to compliment him when possible. Gradually, I thought Mr. Miller's attitude was starting to soften. Then, one day, which happened to be my day off, I was on my way to the hospital to drop off some laundry for my hospitalized father and deliver some necessities when Mr. Miller called me. He wanted me to join him for a drink right away. I, who had no habit of drinking from the afternoon, naturally refused. I had things to do for my hospitalized father. I thought it was a legitimate reason. However, the next day, I was suddenly informed of a job transfer. Starting next month, I was to be seconded as a general hand at a large plant facility. I found out that our company was a subcontractor at this plant, and it was mandatory to have a permanent staff member from our company stationed there. The job mainly involved menial tasks like entering the inspection data that came in, revising pipeline diagrams, and organizing previous documents. I was to replace the current staff member stationed there. When I thought this job wasn't what I wanted to do, my colleagues looked at me with pity. It seems I've been labeled as a deadweight employee. The reason was because I didn't attend a drinking party on the holiday. I didn't understand. How one spends their holiday should be a matter of personal freedom. However, Mr. Miller believed in dedicating oneself to work. He would rush to respond whenever called upon by superiors, climbing the ranks by being a yes man. Prioritizing family over one's boss was unthinkable to him. That's just how he thinks. Maybe I can't manage here either. I've always struggled with interpersonal relationships. In large companies, even when talking about work, there would somehow be discrepancies, and people drifted away from me. But here, failing to grasp the president's intentions, I ended up being treated as a liability. No matter where I go, do I just not get along with people? Feeling down, I even considered quitting, but the work environment at the assignment location turned out to be very good. Although the tasks were mostly simple, I liked being able to work quietly on my own. No one expected anything from me, and it didn't matter if the work didn't get done today. As long as I took care of the tasks at hand, I wouldn't attract any attention. Plus, people from our company rarely visit this office, so I don't have to meet Mr. Miller. Ever since being treated as a dead weight, there were no invitations to drinking parties. I could manage here. I chose comfort over job satisfaction. Usually, it's a comfortable workplace where I can work quietly on my own, but there are times when this peace is disrupted. During the scheduled maintenance, plant facilities require regular inspections and repairs. All equipment operations are halted during this time. Therefore, it needs to be done quickly, with a large number of workers gathered from all over the country to complete it in a span of 2 weeks to a month. It's all hands on deck. Meaning, even this usually quiet workplace becomes crowded with inspectors and construction workers during this time, and of course, that includes Mr. Miller and all my colleagues from the company. Well, they're too busy to bother with me. I just carry on with my usual tasks. Although the volume of work significantly increases. As the maintenance period approaches, more and more people are arriving. At the morning assembly, someone new always arrives and introductions start. Normally, I just blankly watch, but today was different. A woman was dispatched from the main contractor of this plant facility. In other words, a woman from the head office is making her greeting. I've been assigned here from today. My name is Clara. Nice to meet you. She greeted us clearly. Even in her work clothes, she was graceful. Her eyes were sharp and double-lidded, and her high nose bridge and slightly long face were beautiful, yet she had an androgynous aura. She was my classmate from my student days. I quietly blended into the crowd, hoping she wouldn't notice me. I don't want her to know I'm here. But, what are you doing in a place like this? After the assembly, as Clara was making her rounds, she found me quite easily. When asked by those around if we knew each other, she nodded. She was my classmate during my technical college days. The surroundings buzzed at her remark. Hey Michael, you went to a technical college? Asked by a colleague, I reluctantly nodded. Technical college. A higher educational institution with a high standard where graduating from one gives you an advantage in job hunting, and mentioning it causes a stir. Especially in places like this plant facility, where technical college graduates are highly valued. Michael, you never seemed like that. You were probably just scraping by with her grades, right? Clara glared at the teasing colleague. What are you talking about? This guy. I shook my head vigorously at Clara, who was about to say something. My face must have been pale. Reading my expression, Clara didn't say anything further. That evening, a welcome party was arranged. It was still a day when we could go home on time. I was hastily getting ready to leave when, planning to leave, I was stopped by Clara. When I hesitantly nodded, she gave me a forceful smile, saying, "You're coming to the welcome party, right?" I awkwardly shook my head. "Why not?" asked with a smile still on her face. I hung my head. "I'm not good at it." Clara sighed. "It's a rare reunion, and yet you're so cold." With a resigned expression, I murmured an apology. "Sorry." Clara exhaled again. "But why the menial tasks? I heard about it. You're seconded from a subcontractor company, right? You, of all people, should be." I cut off Clara's words. "I don't want to stand out." Clara frowned. Still as clumsy at navigating situations as ever, I see. Even though she was blunt, it didn't hurt coming from Clara. Clara was one of the few who understood me during my technical college days. I thought I had an aita day. Well, can't help it. I guess I'll have to suppress the despite being a woman part again today. The phrase Clara hated the most was "despite being a woman." We were comrades in a technical college department with few women, but she would get instantly upset when someone said "despite being a woman." She lived her life with too much to prove. I placed a hand on Clara's shoulder. "You're tensing up." At my words, Clara took a deep breath. "Brings back memories. You often calm me down like this." Clara, now relaxed, seemed a bit cuter. "I understand you don't want to stand out, but secretly help me out when I'm in trouble, okay?" Smiled at by the now cuter Clara, I nodded sincerely. "Of course, just say the word, secretly, though." We both chuckled, and I went on my way home, while Clara headed to the bar where the welcome party was being held. On my way home, I reminisced about my technical college days. Back then, I also struggled with forming relationships intended to be isolated. Clara, one of only 2 girls in our class, wanted to be on equal footing with the boys and often came across as standoffish, which made her unpopular among the students. She took on the role of class rep eagerly, but there were those who didn't follow her proposals. During such times, she would cry in private. By chance, I was the one who found her in that state. She had arrived before me and was trembling as I always ate my lunch alone. I unhesitatingly sat down and started eating my lunch, which seemed to infuriate Clara. "Why are you eating here? You should have the decency to avoid me since I'm here." Her eyes were red from rubbing them after crying. "It doesn't bother me that you are crying. This is where I eat every day anyway." When I said that, Clara turned red and insisted, "I'm not crying. Why would you think I was crying? I'm not." Even though it was obvious from her red eyes that she had been crying. I remember thinking her defiant attitude was somewhat cute. "I think the class project should go with your idea. The boys are probably just opposing it for the sake of it without any alternative ideas." When I said this calmly, Clara's eyes widened. "Then, you should support it," she said, pursing her lips, and I gave her a puzzled look. "Don't you think if I support it, it'll just be opposed even more?" Since I was also isolated in the class. Clara sighed. "Then, I have to do something about it, since you said my plan wasn't wrong." As Clara mumbled to herself, I naturally placed my hand on her shoulder. Clara flinched. "What?" Surprised, she looked at me, so I said, "No, just thought you're tense. You should relax more. You're cute, Clara, just saying what came to mind." Clara turned bright red and denied it, but I thought that was also kind of cute. Since then, Clara and I became friends. But it wasn't romantic. It was a friendship between a boy and a girl, both of whom had few friends. We went our separate ways after graduation without even exchanging contact information. We said see you, and that was the end of it. And now, suddenly, she was here in front of me, and I was a bit shaken. Several days have passed since then. The maintenance period gradually became busier, and all the workers were extremely busy. The tasks coming to me also increased, but not to an unmanageable amount. One day, I heard Clara's yelling. "What's going on?" It was a voice filled with an unprecedented tension. Even though it was none of my business, I found myself walking towards where Clara's voice came from. How can this be done in time now? How could this happen? Her voice sounded almost tearful, so I approached Clara without caring about the surrounding gazes. And then, I placed my hand on her shoulder. "What's wrong? Calm down." Clara showed me a distressed face. "The piping diagram drawn at the site. The orientation is all wrong." I looked at the drawing. It was an isometric diagram of the pipes. It shows the pipes in 3D by tilting the horizontal direction by 30 degrees. Usually, in this site, the upper right diagonal represents north, but this specification required the upper left diagonal to be north. It's already, a huge amount has been drawn. Even if we have to redraw it, changing the direction like this, it's difficult for a CAD operator. I patted Clara's shoulder gently. "I'll do it." Clara looked at me in surprise. But you didn't want to stand out, right?" I burst out laughing. "I can't just stay silent because I don't want to stand out when you are in trouble." Clara lowered her eyebrows. "Michael." She called my name with a voice that sounded almost tearful. "Leave it to me. It just needs to be rotated 90 degrees, right? As long as the finalized drawings are correct, that's fine, isn't it? I'll draw the major pipes and components in CAD, and can you ask the operator to handle the finer details of the remaining parts?" The surroundings buzzed. Everyone looked at me as if wondering what a menial worker like me could possibly do. Among them was Mr. Miller, who happened to pass by. Clara looked at me with her nose puffed up. Even though it meant standing out, her expression seemed to ask if it was okay to reveal the truth. I reluctantly nodded. Clara's face lit up. "It's all going to be fine. If you're getting serious, there's no problem at all," she exclaimed with a vibrant voice. I caught Mr. Miller's puzzled look. Michael was one of the top students in our technical college, a genius with an IQ over 135. After graduation, he was even recruited by a major plant design company. Clara's words stirred up the crowd. "Genius is a bit much," I hesitantly said to Clara, who glared at me. "If you're not a genius, then what am I? An idiot? You're a genius. Realize it. It's just your high IQ makes it hard for you to understand people's feelings." I wilted, but I was internally happy to see Clara's spirit return. From then on, I became suddenly busy. I was told I didn't have to do my usual menial tasks, but it didn't feel right, and that would just put more pressure on others. So, while managing my own tasks, I proceeded with the direction of drawing change. I just had to mentally rotate the drawing 90 degrees and draw it. To me, it was a simple and straightforward task. You don't need a high IQ for this, just a brain specialized in spatial visualization. Moreover, I had CAD drawing skills developed at the plant design company. In the design company, the ability to quickly and accurately draw blueprints in CAD was essential, and my skills significantly improved during my time there. Knowing I didn't mind standing out, Clara started throwing impossible tasks at me. "You can't just ignore it if I'm in trouble, right?" she said, asking for designs of pipes that needed repair and detailed drawings of small components. I managed all of it with a wry smile. Being able to handle whatever is thrown at you, really, it's annoying. It was hard to believe those words came from the person who kept assigning me tasks. But these exchanges felt like we were back in our student days, and I somewhat enjoyed it. Time flew by, and the maintenance was completed as scheduled. The drawing corrections were finished within the deadline. I had been working overtime a lot lately. Today, I thought I'd go home early and get some rest, but then Clara invited me. You're not going to the all-staff party, are you? Hang out with me. She seemed to have endless energy. Clara had been running around more freely than I had. She had been visiting the site and working on the computer. She must have had more overtime than me. Shouldn't you rest early for your skin's sake? I meant well, but Clara smacked me hard on the back. How dare you say that to my glowing skin? Hearing that, I looked at Clara's face. It is really glowing, I commented honestly, and Clara turned beet red. See, that's why we're going. Clara forcibly dragged me by the arm. She had chosen a nearby restaurant. Since we both drove, neither of us could drink, and she said it felt kind of nostalgic. This restaurant was a place where Clara and I often dined during our exam study sessions. Although it wasn't the exact branch we used to frequent, this chain had the same interior and menu everywhere, so any location felt nostalgic. We took seats at the end and ordered dinner along with the drink. I ordered a soda with no ice. No ice, just like always. Clara noted with a laugh as she looked at my glass. Ice dilutes the drink when it melts. I replied the same reason I had back in technical college. Cheers. Clara raised her cup of coffee towards me. Great job on the work. Our cups clinked together. This time, I really owe you one. You truly are a genius, she said. I scratched my head awkwardly. If I were a genius, I'd wish to live a bit more smoothly, I said with a wry smile, and Clara laughed. I like that about you, Michael, she said with her most radiant smile, making me smile too. Clara, you're still living life with such intensity, just like before. It's somehow reassuring. I chuckled, but Clara looked down somewhat sadly. Reassuring, huh? In that moment, I suddenly realized something. Had I made another blunder in what I said? Whenever I misspeak, people usually look disappointed, just like she did. Sorry, did I say something wrong again? I asked hurriedly, and Clara shook her head. I said I like you, but you just said it was reassuring. Clara seemed flustered, and I was confused. I didn't want Clara to dislike me. Sorry, what did I do wrong? I don't want you to hate me, I confessed, and Clara's eyes widened. Isn't that liking someone? She asked. I became even more confused. What do you mean? I do like you, Clara, I said. Clara frowned for a moment, then ruffled her hair in frustration. Ack, it's not getting through, she exclaimed, sounding exasperated. Then, with a burst of energy, she looked up. I've liked you since technical college, not as a friend, but as a man. I was taken aback. You have? She nodded, her lips pursed. My face instantly heated up like a boiling kettle. Why? We didn't even exchange contact information when we graduated from technical college, since technical college. As I asked in confusion, Clara's expression grew even more frustrated. I wanted you to say it first, but you never did, so I got stubborn. I was dumbfounded. But you always said you didn't want to be treated differently because you're a woman. Yet when it comes to this, gender matters. I blurted out what was on my mind. Tears welled up in Clara's eyes, and I panicked. I know it's contradictory, but when it comes to love, I want to be treated like a girl. Seeing Clara trembling, I was truly flustered. I'm sorry, Clara, I like you too. But Clara's expression didn't brighten. Lies. I was at a loss. It's not a lie, I'm really bad at lying. Clara puffed out her cheeks. Then, I think your like and my like are completely different. The dinner we ordered was placed in front of us, bewildering me further. We decided to eat our dinner first, pausing the conversation. During that time, I thought hard. Much harder than when I'm working. What kind of like do I have for Clara? As I pondered, an answer naturally came to me. But it seemed impossible to confess here in the restaurant. After finishing our meal in silence, I suggested, let's go outside. Clara nodded sadly, and we headed to the cashier. My heart felt tight. I felt like I'd hurt her again by not saying enough. Could someone like me convey my feelings to Clara? Again, I was lost in thought. Well, upon leaving the restaurant, Clara started towards her car. I hastily stopped her. Wait, how about a walk? Clara looked surprised. Aren't you going home? I shook my head. No, I want to walk along the embankment. Clara agreed with a nod and began walking beside me. The embankment carried a refreshing scent. The flowers, likely beautiful in the daylight, rustled in the night breeze. After walking in silence to a deserted spot, I abruptly stopped. Clara, surprised, stopped a few steps ahead of me. What's wrong? Her puzzled face was faintly illuminated by the street light. I can't quite explain my like for you, especially not in a bustling restaurant. I struggled to find the right words. Driven by my feelings, I hugged Clara. Clara froze, surprised by my embrace. I hugged her tighter. I've always wanted to hug you like this, not just patting your shoulder, but holding you tight. I was sad when we couldn't even exchange contact information at graduation. We talked at school, but I thought we weren't close enough to talk outside of it, even on holidays. Tears naturally spilled from my eyes as I spoke. Because I don't understand people's feelings and end up hurting them, I thought I shouldn't express my feelings of liking someone to anyone. Clara trembled within my embrace. Really? Did you really like me? Were you lonely without being able to contact me? When she asked, I nodded repeatedly. Clara stepped back from my arms to look at me directly. Really? Do you, I mean, like me in a way that you'd want to kiss me? Blushing, I nodded again. And naturally, our lips met. As long as I know that, it's okay. Clara whispered softly after we parted. Even if I don't understand what you want to say or do, as long as I know you love me, I won't misunderstand your feelings. Hearing her words made me incredibly happy. At the same time, I felt terribly sorry. Wouldn't this mean making Clara always worry about me? Clara laughed, as if to dispel my fears. When you said let's leave the restaurant, was it because you couldn't hug me there? And the like you casually mentioned meant I love you, right? I vigorously nodded. If I'm confident that I'm loved, I won't misunderstand. So, will you love me? Will you always love me? I hugged Clara with all my might. Yes, yes, I love you so much, Clara. I love you. From the very first conversation we had in technical college, I've always found her adorable and dear to me. I would have done anything for Clara. To have the person I love in my arms was an indescribably happy feeling. It was an emotion I was experiencing for the first time in my life. Years later, Clara and I are enjoying peaceful days. After the maintenance period, there was a headhunting offer for me from Clara's superior. Since my father's health had stabilized, I returned to New York. There, I was given a job that utilized my unique skills, and I led a fulfilling life. Clara and I continued our relationship smoothly and got married. However, I could never get used to the hustle and bustle of the city. Being part of a company meant inevitable transfers and business trips, leading to an unsettled life. So, we decided to start a small design office in our hometown. Of course, Clara is the president. I wouldn't be suited for that role. Can I take this job? It might be a bit of an overwork, but... Looking at the specifications Clara handed me, I nodded. Yeah, it's fine. Clara followed up, saying, Is that fine, as in it seems a bit tough, but for Clara's sake, I'll push myself and do it. I chuckled. No, it's fine, as in I've worked with this client before, and their specifications are solid, and I can work hard for my beloved Clara. Clara smiled at me. Okay, that's good then. I, too, smiled. I never thought I'd get married. No, I thought I couldn't. I couldn't imagine making someone else happy. But Clara is still smiling beside me today. Honestly, I think I'm a burden to her. Living a life constantly considering my feelings, I sometimes wonder if it's really okay. But Clara is still smiling beside me. I just need to believe in this smile. I smiled back at Clara and renewed my vow to love her for the rest of my life.